Hey, everybody. This is Scott Schnars, and this is the Beyond the Dashboard podcast. I'm Scott. I'm the founder of Yirla. It's an AI platform that pulls all of your paid campaigns into one place, finds the budget that you're wasting, and tells you exactly where you can move it. Each episode, I get to talk to the marketers who are out there actually doing the work, and they share what's working, what's flopped, and what they might do differently. If you like this content and it provides some value for you, would love for you to subscribe or share this with a colleague. And with that out of the way, let's jump right into this. I'm super excited about today's guest. She has built demand gen programs from the ground up. She was an early adopter of AI and even won a Microsoft competition for AI startups. And she's consulted for brands across both Europe and the US. She now runs demand gen at marker.io, where she's building a scalable growth system that connects marketing, sales, and customer success into one single revenue engine. She's got a really sharp analytical background, which is part of the reason I wanted to have her on the show. She has really strong opinions about what actually moves pipeline and no patience for vanity metrics. In her free time, she's a DJ at a local community radio and other clubs around Lithuania, and she happens to be the second DJ that we've had on the show. So I want to welcome Aurelija Vyčaitė. Please welcome you to Beyond the Dashboard. How bad
Hi,
did I
Scott.
butcher your name right there?
Yeah, that was
After we
actually,
practiced it a bunch.
it was actually a very beautiful introduction. So thanks for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate you being on the show. One of the things that I was fascinated with, really, is that you've worn a lot of different hats. You've been a consultant, a product owner. You've done the Microsoft AI contest that you and your team have won there. Now you're the head of demand gen at marker.io. So I'm always intrigued at how people manage their career pathing, and I'm curious what's been the through line that connects all of those organizations and all those different roles.
Yeah, I think in my core, I'm essentially a marketer, and I've always been. I studied marketing. I fell in love with this discipline. And then over time, of course, there were some situations where I saw opportunities to try out something different. That was in my first jobs. For example, when I took the role of the product owner, and I had to manage development teams and basically think as a product owner about the roadmap, about the backlog. And that was a new experience. But at the same time, I felt that it's essentially all about understanding the customer and trying to get deeper into the way they think. So I would say that there are several things that unite all of the roles that I had in my past and the role that I have currently. And that would be being the voice of the customer. And maybe another thing that I would add is that I've noticed that a lot of the roles I had were united by the fact that there were no rules written yet. So even in the job of the product owner, I was the first product owner in the company. Before that, there was another marketing manager actually talking directly to the developers and trying to set up plans with them. But I took over, and I really wanted to kind of turn that into a more structured area in the company that has its own principles and its own goals besides just the launching campaigns in the right way. Then the next job was in consulting, where we had also, that was a pretty young company, and there we had to help our clients to decide which market and technology and product decisions to take, and then the roles that were following that were also in areas where marketing didn't really have a very strong foundation at the time. So I've always been interested in taking up challenges where you have to venture into new fields and figure out what works and what doesn't work. I've never been super attracted by the idea of working at a large, corporation. And at some day, maybe I would like to try that. But yeah, at this moment, I think that I'm very happy in the position where I am.
Do you, I love how you said that you were kind of looking for things that don't have a rule book so that you can build your own playbooks there. Do you, when you think about your career and kind of how you've progressed, are you seeking out opportunities where they don't have that rule book so that you can come in and kind of create your own rules and create your own playbook?
In my job search in the
Or did you,
past,
or did you just get lucky and you found like these things that like really hit on your passion for building?
no, I would say that so when I was looking for jobs in my career, all the times when that happened, I wasn't specifically looking for opportunities that require you to set things up from the ground, but once I get the job, for example, whatever that title might be, I don't know, project manager, for example, I would eventually discover areas in the company that might need refinement. And that happened a couple of times in my career when I would talk to my boss and I would discuss about my next step in that role. And usually that would be setting out a new function in the company. And this is something that just keeps happening for me for some reason. I don't know why. It's not, strategic. It's not maybe it's a deliberate choice to some extent, since I still have those conversations and I still have those ideas, but it doesn't happen in the job search or like when I'm looking for another
Interesting.
opportunity.
But you were fortunate enough, you're at Marker now, and you've fallen into this role where you get to build everything. And when you saw this opportunity, what drew you there, and what makes it interesting to you from a marketing standpoint?
hmm Um, I think there were a couple of reasons. I got this job actually also really randomly. I wasn't really looking for a job,
It's the
but
best way, right?
yeah, but I found the job description, and it felt to me that they described it in the exact way I would describe myself. And then I checked out the product, and my realization was that it's the exact right product for the job position I had in the past as a product owner. As a website manager, I would have loved to use something like this. And that was actually the first impression that I got after probably 1 minute spent on the website. So the reason why I liked that product was that it wasn't trying to, and it's still not trying to pretend something that it's not. And I think this is something that a lot of B2B SaaS companies are doing nowadays when they are fixing, like, I don't know, a tiny part of the workflow, but they are pretending that they are multiplying your revenue by 5 times or something. And it feels like it's just gonna be a very, very difficult job for the marketer to validate these claims and build a whole
Right.
market positioning like that. And so my impression of Marker was that, okay, I understand it. I won't need to have those lengthy discussions with the whole team about how we need to change the way we talk about this product. It's simple, although ambition is there, and there are a lot of new things that are coming out, which make the product a bit more complicated and maybe not that easy to explain anymore. But still, my impression was that it's actually a very, very nice thing to do, and I believed in them. So that's the reason why what drew me to this company.
Great. How important do you think that is for anybody, but someone in sales and marketing in particular, to be able to go into an organization and really understand at a core level the problem that it solves versus a high level problem that it solves, just from a relative success standpoint? Like, can somebody who doesn't have that same kind of passion and background that you have, where you saw the product and you're like, yeah, I could have used this, X number of years ago, do they have to have that to be successful?
I think it depends. Of course, it really helps to have some experience as a potential customer of the product that you're trying to sell. Although even in my current situation, there are many different types of users of Marker, which I know very little about from
Mm.
my experience. So, for example, enterprise is a very important segment for every single B2B SaaS company. I've never worked in a corporation, so I don't know exactly what it feels to be a manager there. So in those situations, you have to put in way more work into understanding the psychology of such people. And so what I'm doing is, I try to get on the calls with customers. I try to even get in touch with some of my friends that work at corporations and discuss job matters, even though it might be
Yeah.
a little bit annoying for them, but to understand actually, okay, how the sales process looks like, what kind of steps you have to take in order to bring in a new vendor. And then you learn over time how these things work and you become empathetic. So it's very important to have that skill. But you don't necessarily need to have that role in the past in your background somewhere.
But I love that you're going the extra mile, Aurelia, by picking up the phone and calling customers that are there, calling your friends that are in these types of roles in order to put yourself into those shoes. And, as much as we think that like AI is this great panacea, like you're never going to learn like what it's like to be in an enterprise role by asking an LLM, what's it like to be in an enterprise role? Like you've kind of gone out of your way to experience that. And I'm imagining, and I'm really eager to hear how you think about like, how does that give you empathy and how does that give you perspective into those roles that maybe you couldn't get by just asking an LM?
Definitely. I don't think LLMs, I mean, of course, you can feed some, conversation notes, or you can try to feed some data and then maybe build personas. I saw people bragging about doing such things, but honestly, I don't think that would ever replicate the real experience of talking to a real person, especially if that is somebody you already know, maybe your friend or your, I don't know. For example, my brother is a developer, and our target market to some extent is also developers. Some of our
Yeah.
users are developers. So I really like talking about his day-to-day work, his processes that he has to manage, the products that he has in the stack, and I get an honest answer that is not fake. And I think it's even better than having a sales conversation or something where people might be wearing a mask. So
Yep. I want to talk about your background in analytics a little bit, and keen to understand like where does that show up on a day-to-day basis for you as you're running your team, and how often does data supersede just gut feel in terms of the types of campaigns that you're running and the decisions that you're making?
hmm um so first of all, I wouldn't really call myself an analyst. To some extent, I did analytical work uh, during my consultancy job, where I was a consultant at a company that was consulting e-commerce businesses.
Okay.
And there, I wasn't a quantitative person. The analysis that I was doing was more on the qualitative end with some quantitative insights. And I think there were a couple of things that I learned and a couple of things that actually fascinated me to the extent that I still think about markets and products in the way that was influenced by that job. And I would say that it's related to how I see industries. In that previous job, I was uh, doing a thing called industry scan, and basically there I would take. So, for example, we had a client that I don't know, sells supplements, let's say, and they really want to understand what kind of digital experience they should be building based on various kinds of metrics, such as, in general, what are the state of the art digital experiences out there, but also they would like to understand how their competitors are doing things. And so I would be looking at a number of them, like 20 competitors, 30 competitors in the
Wow.
whole.
Okay.
Yeah. And so let's
And
say,
this is for like a consumer product that you had said supplements?
yeah, at that time that
Uh,
was, I'm giving the
yeah.
example of the supplements
No,
brand,
no, no.
but
But it's a good example to hear. Just like I'm surprised that they wanted to know what like 30 of their competitors are doing. But keep going.
yeah. So basically, it was also partially my idea to take that large number and analyze it, because of course you can just take 5 competitors, or you can ask them who are your direct competitors. But I think when you're taking a way broader approach and you're looking at the market as a whole, let's say the whole supplements market that is active online, you start seeing very interesting clusters and segments within it. And that, I think, gives you a way broader insight, because if you look at only your direct competitors, you will see companies doing very similar things to what you're doing, and your decisions might be driven by that direct competitor who is maybe having, I don't know, some special feature on your side, or has a special campaign for Black Friday or whatever. But if you look at the broader industry and you take a wider range, you start seeing that there are different clusters, and everybody's in that cluster identifying their own direct competitors, but not necessarily you as a company are looking at your indirect competitors from a different cluster. And that might be actually helping you to see how the consumer behavior is being shaped. Because when they are considering different options, they are not necessarily looking at you and your direct competitors. They are exposed to
Right.
very different variety of clusters, all advertising their features and their products. So in the supplements example, I think it's quite it was interesting for me to say that there were like 5 very similar brands that were selling supplements in the gummy candy type of form.
Okay.
There were like 4 competitors that were very similar to AG1, and then you have another type of supplements that are very gender based. So you see that there is one leader in the cluster, and then smaller follower brands. So again, when you start seeing things from a broader perspective, you start seeing more opportunities, and maybe where this whole ecosystem is moving. Because I really think that industries are like ecosystems where it's really organic how it's being shaped, and companies are just copying each other to some extent, and maybe not even seeing what's happening outside their cluster.
Do you think that consumer products value competitive intelligence more than enterprise companies? Like in your role at Marker, are you spending a lot of time looking at all of the different competitors and across the landscape there, or do you kind of look at it once a quarter and you go, okay, that's interesting, or maybe we should move this way or that way? Like, how much does that competitive information impact your decision making?
It does impact the decision making. We are not obsessed by following our competitors. Of course, you can see some trends. Also, I think when it comes to competitive performance, Marker is doing pretty well. So it's not that
Yeah.
we have to keep up with the pace. But yeah, I think we are just measuring that. I don't know, every month we take a look, or if we see some kind of movement happening in organic or any kind of traffic analytics, of course we take a second look and try to understand what is happening. Maybe the competitor did something, or maybe that's unrelated as well. Maybe we increased our spend somewhere, things like that.
Yeah. Is there a when you talk to your peers in demand gen, is there a metric that they seem to be addicted to that you might be contrarian on and think that maybe they shouldn't be addicted to that metric? And if so, what is that?
It's a good question. I think the key metric that every demand gen team sets depends a lot on the culture of the company and the nature of the company.
Mm,
So I think there is always 1 or 2 key growth levers that took company to the stage it achieves at some point. And in some cases, it might be, organic growth, SEO growth. Maybe other companies really excelled at paid ads, or other companies were doing great content and they grew through social media, or maybe the founder's profile. And that's how they got all of their existing customers, or maybe a large portion of them. And then obviously you become a bit addicted to that type of metric that signals success and health of your marketing operations. So I wouldn't think there is like a single metric that all of the teams are addicted to. But I think there is one that I am a little bit suspicious about, which is quite recent, and it's the LLM visibility. And I definitely agree that you have to track the LLM traffic for your own company. But I've been seeing a lot of tools such as Amplitude, Ahrefs. I also think SEMrush does it, where you can see your overall LLM visibility. And to me, it seems a little bit like a black box. It's not entirely consistent across the tools as well. And so there is this obsession, maybe we can call it an obsession,
Yeah.
actually tracking LLM traffic and understanding where it's coming from. How are you doing compared to your competitors there as well? But to what extent it's actually reliable, it's questionable at this time. I think in the future it will change because we are starting to see the rollout of ChatGPT ads, and now they started
Mm-hmm.
the links and things like that. But at this point, I think, with LLMs, your visibility obviously will grow if your brand is visible, and it's visible in a ubiquitous way. You are not only ranking with your own website, but you also get traffic from other websites and social media and different platforms. So I would invest in that over spending so much time trying to figure out these things.
It does seem like people are creating or using AI to create massive amounts of content to kind of fool the LLMs into getting that higher ranking there. And I think I love how you called it an obsession. I think that's really good. Um, that's interesting. Are you and your team doing something similar where you're just like creating, tens of thousands of pieces of content and it's all formatted in the right way and all like laid out the right way so that when somebody asks a question that you guys pop up? And like, how obsessed is your team with that focus?
You mean formatting content so that it's friendly to LLMs?
Well, basically, like, kind of going back to your position on that, you said that people are maybe a little bit too obsessed with getting their their ranking in the LLMs. And I'm just curious, like when you and your team are doing that, how obsessed are you guys with making sure that you're ranked high as well?
I mean, we are just following all the best practices.
Yeah.
We have a very strong organic guy in our team, and I totally trust his judgment. And we are implementing all the verified best practices that actually also work for organic performance. So it overlaps a lot, and it's not that we are trying to do all of these crazy things. Like I saw some companies even having special chat links added in the footer that would give you kind of like a predefined question that would automatically be plugged into the LLM and different types of LLMs,
Wow.
and would get the custom response from an LLM because the question would be formatted in that way. Again, like all of these things could be done, but we 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 think, and I guess this was also based a little bit on the research that we did, that it doesn't necessarily work that much, or maybe it does not pay off to implement such things.
Yeah, interesting. When you're running campaigns across multiple different channels, you got paid, you've got organic, you've got email, now we've got the ChatGPT ads, you've got events. Like, what does the reporting look like for you and your team across all of those different channels? And how do you do that, and how do you keep that in some kind of like manageable format so you don't have somebody who is just like ripping reports for you 24/7?
Mhm.
Or maybe
We
maybe you have that one person who's ripping reports for you 24/7.
No, we have a very, very simplified reporting structure. And I think for our company, where we have so many different data points, we decided to deliberately simplify the reporting to key metrics that actually show the health of marketing and health of business overall. So basically, in my reporting, I have three team members, and we simply use Google Sheets that we update once a week. And of course, they are based on metrics from different dashboards where the data lives in. But basically, we do have commercial metrics such as net new revenue, for example, and then from that you take a look at key conversions. You look at traffic metrics, paid metrics, social metrics. What else? So all of these things together, and we see if there are any trends, and if there is some kind of shift up and down, then we start digging in deeper. And we're working towards automating everything. So soon we will have a better attribution model and also a stronger
Cool.
reporting that will be automated. But yeah, we just basically had the full team structure set up.
Got it. Okay. Whenever there's lots of campaigns running and you're pulling reporting from all different places, there's oftentimes going to be a gap between what the data says is working and what you actually believe is working. And that does create some tension, like especially when you're trying to go justify budget to your boss or your CFO, whoever it might be. How do you navigate that tension between, hey, the data is saying like this isn't working, but my gut tells me it is, or maybe it's like the data says it is working, but like I see this trend where it's going to start dissipating. How do you manage that?
I mean, there must be some kind of data to give you that gut feeling, right? Maybe it's not
Mm,
the very strong pattern or statistically significant change that would actually substantiate the budget. But in such situations, if I feel like something, like there is traction in the campaign that we are considering to stop, or maybe we are not sure about, in that way, I would also take into account some different examples that because with attribution, there is a thing called dark social, or also you get direct traffic, and you don't know where it's from. But if you see
right.
that you have the campaign running, and you have a specific, let's say, audience or a specific feature that you are targeting with it, so you have a specific goal for that campaign, and you see that your goals are being hit, but you cannot necessarily prove that it's because of that campaign, I would give a credit to the campaign for that result. If I see that the needle is being moved, and I think to some extent we have that culture internally as well, because we understand that there's no such thing as a perfect attribution model. Maybe in the future we will have, or maybe some companies have that already, but us,
I have yet to meet one.
yeah, so see. Um, so yeah, we actually try to look at the conversions and what's happening there, and find some data to prove that things are working or not working.
Are you in the camp of the MQL being dead?
I don't know, like it depends on what you define an MQL.
Okay. It's interesting like, that I was at Demand and Expand last week, and there was a whole session on the MQL being dead or not relevant any longer. And I think that more and more people are saying like, okay, it's great. We've got this marketing qualified opportunity, marketing qualified lead. How much pipeline did it actually generate? And when you go, okay, like we got 1,000 marketing qualified leads, but none of them generated any pipeline. What's going on there? And I'm curious, like, where do you start to draw that line of marketing qualified? Let's make sure that it gets somewhat further down the sales funnel before we start counting that as an opportunity for us.
Mm-hmm. In our case, actually, we are very strongly focusing on, the actual conversions, where we are able to identify who that person is, and then you can more or less understand whether they fit our definition of an ICP, whether we ourselves believe that their structure in the company and their team and their job role would benefit or even be interested in the product. Um, what is an MQL in another way? I have yet to answer, to be honest, because yeah, if somebody who clicked on your ad, in my opinion,
Right.
is not a true MQL, because it can mean anything. It could be an accidental click, it can be a bot click, or who
Right.
knows.
I want to get into AI, and you had your I don't want to say company, but you and your team built an AI product a few years ago, built it with Microsoft during a competition that you guys won. Can you just talk a little bit about what that was? But then I want to get into how that experience of building that changed your lens on how you look at AI tools being marketed not only to demand gen but teams, but to everything right now.
Mm. Um, yeah, that experience was quite a long time ago. At that time, we were building a solution for improving ed tech with AI at universities. And the problem we decided to tackle was an increasingly large cohorts at universities where for one professor, you would have an increasing number of students. So as a student, you don't get sufficient support throughout your education journey. And it happens all around the world, including, Western Europe and US and other countries around the world. So basically, the idea that we had was related to finding a peer in the classroom or in the auditorium that could help you with the study materials based on your level and their level of understanding the material. And the way we would determine these levels were also
It's really cool.
quizzes that would be built based on the study materials. So basically, as a professor, after every single class or as often as you want, you could give a quiz to your students on the material that was covered. And then based on these answers, you would get a score. That's also really good because in increasingly large cohorts, the midterms and exams are like all of these intermediary evaluations are less and less frequent. So you don't really know where you stand in terms of understanding the material before the exam. And in some cases, even in my experience as a student, I would have only one exam and no other evaluations before that. So basically, that was the problems that we wanted to solve and the solution that we provided. And as you know your level, you get matched with a peer, and if you want, you can help somebody to learn, or you can get help. So that was the idea. We had a very lightweight demo. We fortunately won the competition. That was a really proud moment. And at that
It
time,
should be.
AI,
That's amazing.
thank you. Um, at that time, AI was a very, I would say, rudimental concept compared to how we understand it today. So basically, my own understanding was that, okay, it has something to do with, cluster analysis, like some automated learning based on data and automatic updates. But you had very simple concepts of data science and AI. And we had a few technical people in the team that were able to apply them. And you didn't really have to um, defend that much the concept of what you build because AI in itself was a pretty novel thing. And the main challenge would be to actually explain what it is and how it works and where's the magic. Whereas today, everybody knows where the magic is from. And I think the major AI platforms such as ChatGPT uh, and Claude, of course, they set the standard for all of the customers that the rest of us in SaaS have. They set the standard for what they expect. They set the standard for the UX and UI of AI implementation. And it's becoming increasingly popular to have, chat interfaces within your product. And so now your job is, first of all, to kind of keep up with the pace because like if I'm using ChatGPT in one tab and then I open your app in another tab and with GPT it's just enough for me to type in like a very vaguely defined problem and I get an
Right.
answer and it's so immediate and so straightforward. And then you have in the other tab something like Jira where you have to work another programming language of Jira to send a ticket, of course, that's going to be quite frustrating and increasingly
Sure.
frustrating over time. So this is how AI impacts us, because we recognize that as well, that, for example, we have describe the issue field in our widget, and customers write down their issue and they hit send, but we realize that maybe they would like AI to refine the writing of your messy notes. And actually, some people were doing that in another tab where they had the ChatGPT. They would copy paste the issue, they would refine it in a more structured way, and then paste it back into Marker. That's how we implemented that button, because it's now
Wow.
standard. And it's just, a simple example of how it impacts day-to-day decisions. And I think these are product decisions. It's going to be also marketing decisions in the future. I saw some companies, having even on their homepage a very similar interface to ChatGPT, where you just I mean, it depends a little bit on what your product is offering, but they even have the same input field as in ChatGPT, where you type in your website and then you get some kind of immediate result, and I don't know, maybe analysis of your company or something. So yeah, I think it's just a shift in terms of expectations.
I think you just gave the best possible sales pitch for an MCP and why everybody needs it. Because like you're 100% right. Like that ChatGPT or Claude, I can't remember which model you use, to Jira is like such a perfect example of why it's so important to just make that whole UI super easy. And just being able to be able to file a ticket from Claude is way better than having to go into Jira and having to do it.
Yeah.
Kind of along those lines, you have kind of every single company out there is bolting AI onto their product, right? Like whether that's part of the martech stack or part of anything else. For you and your team, what are you finding that's actually useful versus just kind of noise that's out there?
Um, the most valuable things in my experience so far have been MCPs, as you mentioned yourself. I really love connecting MCP to our CRM with read-only access, and
Okay.
see patterns in what kind of customers we had, where they are coming from, things like that. And also you can schedule these reports, and if there's something that you need to automatically report every single week for your team or for your boss, you can actually get that information collected and structured for you. I use AI, of course, all of the basic things like Claude Code, but I really like uh, doing research with it, where you can also have specified topics that you want to follow, and you can give very structured requirements for that research, and actually find out what is happening in the industry that's relevant for our content strategy. And what else? I think so when it comes to content things, and in general, like anything that requires some real raw thought, I've noticed that there is some impulse for people to immediately lean towards AI at moments when AI can be the most harmful thing
Mm.
for your decision making. Because when we see a difficult question in front of ourselves, actually I think the best decision would be to really try to think it through and have a robust logical structure for how you are going to answer that question, for what information you will need to get all the context. And when you're doing that yourself, you're way more likely to be extremely logical about these conclusions, and you are not leaving any loose threads. And I've noticed that AI usually does the opposite, and you get
Do you have
answers
an
that might.
example of that? That's really interesting. Because I
So
feel like I know what you're talking about, but I'm sure you've got a different lens on it. So I'm keen to get an example from you.
I think in general, like if you ask something about how do I improve my organic strategy or
Right. Okay.
something, even if you give a more specified question with a clear problem stated, maybe you give some context, you will get answers that will be quite generic and they will not hit the nail to its head. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
get some answer that might be relatively vague, first of all. Second of all, it will not give you a direction that is strategically sound, or because usually for answering such questions you really need to understand the problem way more deeply, and then you realize that there are like a very very specific things that you can do to solve that problem, and AI would never be able to surface that because you as a human, you have way more context, you have very specific examples in your head, you have your gut, you have a lot of context about the whole business. And so your judgment is going to be way smarter compared to AI, who is just answering this question based on a very limited scope, which is the question that you asked. And so it will give you a basic answer because it doesn't know all of the things that you know. And you might remember some customer conversation. Maybe you will remember some report that you saw two weeks ago, and you will subconsciously connect all of these things to come up with an idea that is way better. But arriving at that idea actually requires you to think. And with AI, I think we're becoming more and more lazy to think. And so this is what happens, I think, for many teams.
Love that. I mean, I think that you're 100% right. Like I work with people who lean on Claude for kind of all of their advice. And as you pointed out very succinctly, Aurelia, like it sort of lowers the bar down to almost like fast food level. Like you're not going to get like some really interesting original thought out of it. You're going to get this compilation of like what everybody has done in that particular scenario that's worked out the best, not anything like quasi risky.
Yeah.
If you could take one thing out of a demand gen team's tech stack, like just erase it from, I don't want to say erase it from the world, but if you could remove one thing from the tech stack without any kind of budget implications, like what's the first thing that you'd get rid of?
Good question. Let me think about it because I don't really know. I actually have to audit my own tech stack now. Yeah.
Are there things that you're seeing that teams are just like way too leaned in on and or are far too expensive? And if you don't want to name names, like we can just kind of high level it too.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there are the thing that disappoints me often when I start a subscription, and this is a trend that has been happening recently, is that the integration is becoming a cost or subscription lever for these companies. And this is what I've noticed with Clay. It would have been such a useful integration with our CRM, but they basically put it under a very expensive plan. And so that's like those tools on their own, they would be so useful, but the pricing becomes really high as soon as you actually want to connect everything together. And this is a moment when I reconsider whether it's worth paying the price if I have to automate everything myself. And especially nowadays, there are these ways to sometimes replicate some tools, maybe build out something yourself. This is what we did actually with Intercom's Fin at Marker. This is not my project. This is a project of our product team, but we had Finn, who was our customer support agent, and it was constantly making terrible mistakes. It would confuse currencies. It would talk about plans we didn't have, features we didn't have, and we were paying a lot, around 9K a year for a
Okay.
subscription Intercom's fin. And our CPO, he basically rebuilt it in Claude Code, of course, with a lot of initial testing. And we didn't just launch it as a replacement because it has a huge impact on the way our customers experience the product. But it costs us 10 times less, around $50 a month or something, and it works way better.
Wow,
It
that's
it
amazing.
yeah, so it was a huge win and a very good replacement of a tool that was so overpriced. And since it was probably an industry standard, I think Intercom is so popular you can almost call it an industry standard. Not
Yeah.
a lot of people were questioning this price, but now with AI, of course, you can start doing that. And if you have somebody who is at least a little bit technical or motivated to try their own way, it's very likely they will succeed, and you will get a way more customized solution. So with Clay as well, like I haven't started rebuilding Clay, but I think it's possible to do that kind of research on your own. Even with Google Sheets, I saw they have Gemini who can actually do a lot of research for you
Yeah.
in a
I've
similar
used
way.
I've used Gemini and Sheets as, not for like massive campaigns, but for, I want to do something with like 8 or 10, 12 people. Like Google's been great at that.
Yeah, exactly.
What's changed the most about how you think about demand gen over the last couple of years? And in the next year or two, what do you think is going to continue to change like pretty radically in the industry?
I think what changed was the way one of the first things actually that I've noticed in my personal experience was the way you have to build campaigns from ground up and do everything on your own, starting from content itself, ending with actual implementations, like building landing pages and things like that. You would have to hire developers. You would have to have somebody technical to connect the data sources for you. And what changed in the last years, especially with Claude Code, I think that was a huge breakthrough, was that you can basically do everything yourself. Not a long time ago, I actually pushed my first GitHub project, and I merged the project with the live website. And I'm not a developer, I never was, but I have a GitHub account, and I'm doing these things now, of course, with instructions and provision of our CTO. But basically, that was not possible for someone like me in the past. I mean, technically possible if I were putting in a lot of work, but now I don't really need to dig into code myself. And a lot of things you can do yourself. You can build out whole landing pages. You can. I mean, I'm pretty skeptical about content production, but I still think that can be accelerated, especially if you have maybe some kind of a hero campaign visual or copy or like messaging canvas, and you can spin off variations off of that. You won't be able to replace the core thinking and the strategic thinking, but you can way faster write, design, build, and it's actually accelerating the pace.
Where does that go in 2 years?
Think it will uh, it will go towards a more extreme version of what we have now. But honestly, I think that we will not lose specialists that are excellent at their craft, because you still want quality, and there's going to be, and still actually already we see the fatigue of AI generated content. So things that are authentic, things that are a little bit imperfect are becoming maybe even more noticeable, more likable, and the brands will have to take a note on that, and just probably invest in content, maybe not more, but not less as well as they are now, and especially in quality content.
And I hope that people continue to pick up the phone and call their customers and call their friends that work at those kinds of companies, because I do think like that human element is going to be so important just as we continue to kind of get into more and more AI developed stuff like that just that reaching out to somebody builds trust and it builds that relationship that's hard. It's, not even hard. It's impossible to replicate through AI.
Yeah, exactly. I actually also just remembered this interesting example that compares how, luxury brands are reacting to AI, and they're very resistant to AI generated content. And as a result, they do something completely contrarian. They hire real people, real artists to work on content, whereas how to put it, lower budget. No, McDonald's isn't a lower budget company, but it's a company that is not targeting the luxury segment. Uh, has released an ad that is completely designed through AI, and so AI generated content maybe is gonna be for the lowest cost audiences or something like that. So it's just
Yeah,
gonna be value indicator for customers.
Yeah, I would imagine that like when margins are so thin that have, if you're selling a hamburger that cost you $2 to make and you're selling it for 250, like those are razor thin margins. You can't have a whole team of artists and videographers come in to do it, and making that on, with AI is really interesting when you're selling a $10,000 or $20,000 purse. Like I assume that the margins on a $10,000 purse are probably pretty healthy. You want to have that experience, and your buyer wants to have that experience.
Yeah. It's also the heritage, the brand equity that is extremely important. And you can very easily ruin that with AI. And obviously, brands are very conscious when they decide to not risk such things. And in B2B world, probably we will see a similar pattern.
Yeah. Aurelia, this has been a wonderful conversation. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the time this evening. Thank you very, very much. Where can people find you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Aurelija Vyčaitė, so it's not an English name and surname. Might be pretty difficult to spell it, but
I will put a link in the show notes so people can find Aurelia.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everybody's time today. This has been another episode of Beyond the Dashboard, a Yirla podcast. Thank you.
Thank you too, Scott.